There are secrets that do not need to be shouted to cause devastation. They exist like a silent fracture in a foundation, waiting for the precise moment to bring down a structure that once seemed unshakable. In Fairmont Crest, where everything is cloaked in glamour, reputation, and the cold discipline of the upper class, truth rarely arrives as a roaring storm. Instead, it seeps in like toxic smoke, slowly infiltrating every breath, until one realizes too late that suffocation has already begun. For Shanice, that moment came in absolute silence, without warning, without mercy, without a single sign that would allow her to brace herself against the most destructive truth of her life. Learning that Dante Green is her biological father did not leave Shanice with a conventional sense of dislocation. It struck directly at the core of the identity she had spent years constructing with discipline and resolve. Dante was not merely a name. He was a symbol of manipulation, of power built on fear and dependence, of lives crushed beneath the weight of personal ambition. The Green legacy, whispered about in Fairmont Crest's underground circles, had always been tied to stories no one wished to revisit, affairs buried with money, influence, and enforced silence. Now, that legacy no longer stood outside Shanice's life. It coursed through her blood, bound to every heartbeat, every survival instinct she had once proudly defined as strength. Shanice's anger did not erupt violently. It settled deep, dense and molten, becoming a slow-burning current beneath the calm exterior she had always presented to the world. She was furious at being stripped of the right to choose her past, furious that every effort she had made to become independent, principled, and strong was now subjected to suspicion. Was that strength truly her own choice, or merely a survival response forged in Dante's shadow without her knowing? Every memory reopened, every moment she had stood against injustice or refused to be controlled, took on a new and unsettling meaning, pulling her into a ruthless spiral of self-interrogation. She could no longer tell where her chosen self ended and where the inherited imprint of a man she despised began. Dante's return carried no trace of remorse or redemption. He arrived like a victor, reclaiming what he had always believed belonged to him. In his eyes, Shanice was not an autonomous person with the right to self-determination, but an extension of himself, a living testament to his ability to produce power even in absence. Dante's ambition was not limited to controlling Shanice. It was to use her existence to reassert his position in old power games and manipulation networks he had once been forced to abandon. Stepping into Fairmont Crest was not about reclaiming a daughter. It was about reclaiming territory, and Shanice was the most dangerous key he possessed. Forced into the center of this confrontation, Shanice was compelled to face her deepest fear. Resisting Dante could cost her everything she had built, yet surrendering to him would mean losing herself entirely. Invisible pressures began to tighten their grip. Relationships around her grew fragile as fragments of Dante's past leaked out, drawing suspicious glances and unspoken questions sharp enough to tear through any defense. Shanice came to understand that, whether she wanted it or not, Dante's existence had transformed her into a potential threat in the eyes of many within Fairmont Crest. For Ted, this twist was no less brutal. It was not merely a social risk, but a profound personal moral crisis. Ted understood Dante far better than he wished to admit. Old ties, buried deals, moments of silence chosen to preserve his own position, now returned to haunt him through Shanice's very existence. His feelings for her were subjected to a merciless test. Did he love Shanice as an independent woman, or was he unconsciously stepping into the role of protector as a way to atone for his own compromised past? Ted found himself trapped in a game where every option amounted to betrayal. Protecting Shanice meant confronting Dante head-on, risking exposure of secrets Ted had sacrificed his career to conceal. Yet choosing compromise, even silence, would make him complicit in the very machinery of control he once despised. His anger did not turn outward. It turned inward, toward the cowardice disguised as rationality, toward the fear of losing everything that had driven him, time and again, to choose the safer path. Fairmont Crest, long accustomed to discreet power struggles, began to tremble as Dante infiltrated it step by step without overt violence, relying instead on reminders of unpaid debts and unresolved obligations. Shanice felt herself being pushed against a wall where every reaction was monitored and every decision exploited. Isolation took shape, not because she was weak, but because people feared what she represented, a living link to a past they desperately wanted erased. Amid the chaos, Shanice began to grasp a truth that was both painful and liberating. She could not erase Dante from her blood, but she could refuse to let him define who she was. The anger that once paralyzed her gradually transformed into a cold, deliberate resolve no longer driven by instinct alone, but by conscious choice. She understood that confronting Dante was not merely a personal battle, but a necessary act to sever a toxic legacy that threatened to destroy countless lives beyond her own. That decision did not bring immediate victory. It came with loss, with fractures in relationships once thought unbreakable, and with the risk that Shanice would be wounded more deeply than ever before. Ted, standing between two moral fault lines, was forced to choose not only for Shanice, but for himself, for the man he wished to be once the curtain of power was pulled back. There was no longer room for ambiguity, no refuge left in the comfort of the grey. In Beyond the Gates, this moment is more than a narrative turning point. It is a direct collision between origin and choice, between legacy and will, between love and fear. When the past comes knocking with all its brutality, Shanice, Ted, and Fairmont Crest itself are forced to confront a question no one can evade. Are people shaped by where they come from, or by what they are willing to sacrifice in order not to become it?